Hi everyone, I am Octavian and I am here today with Father Stephen. Hi Father Stephen.
Hello, Octavian.
Father Stephen is actually my neighbor here in the village, close to the city of Iași, but he's not from Romania. He is from
California.
California, from Los Angeles, Father?
Well, close there. We lived about, maybe 15 kilometers from Disneyland.
From Disneyland, wow, okay. So why we are having this discussion, I'm telling this to Father the first time. I would like to have his point of view on some of the things that someone from the USA or from another country sees here in Romania. So, but not only in Romania, also we are going to talk a bit about Orthodoxy, but I would like to do it in three parts, if you agree. First, I would like to ask you, Father, why God? Because I think I know Father Stephen, and I know that he was not into church. He was not a lot into believing in God, right? In your youth.
Exact.
Okay. So the first part that we will discuss is why God and what happened. The second part would be why Orthodoxy, because as Father will tell us, at first he was not Orthodox. And the third part would be why Romania. So these three, if you agree, I would like to discuss.
You're the boss.
Okay, thanks. So first part, why God? I mean, you were in the States as a young guy there. You lived a typical life, I think, more or less, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I was a typical average knucklehead in America. I was in the Air Force at the time, in the military, and my friend and I were repairing his car, and we went to a place to buy some parts for his car. And as we were in the place, which was like a large department store, sort of like Igros, we were walking down the hall, and I saw this pretty young lady sitting in a store selling wrought iron.
You were how old then?
Well, let's see. I was, let's see. I gotta think about this. I gotta think about this now. I was 19.
19.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was 19 years old.
So, were you a churchgoer at 19?
Hadn't been to church for a long time and had no interest in being in church.
No interest. Okay.
Now, my father was divorced from my mother when I was 6 months old. And then when I was 10, he remarried a Catholic woman who tried to make a Roman Catholic out of me, which was total anathema.
Oh.
And so I was really nothing. I went to church when I was a little boy with my grandmother, but I was such a wild kid and out of control that even the Baptist told my grandmother, Mrs. Holley, we'd love to have you come to our church, and we just love to have you here, but when you come, could you please leave him home? Because I would run around and cause problems and punch the other kids and throw chairs and books and things like this because I was starved for attention.
Well, now that you are telling this, I'm thinking that at the same moment in time, which I think was the 70s.
Actually, the 60s.
The 60s. I think that here in Romania, having the communist regime, a lot of young people actually in the cities were living the same kind of life away from God because they were born and raised in the atheism.
In an atheist culture.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, America was not an atheist culture at the time. America was a very godly culture in the 50s and 60s when I grew up. But to continue my story, we were on our way to buy auto parts, and I saw this pretty young girl, and I smiled at her, and she smiled back at me, and I told my friend to go buy his parts and pick me up on his way back here at the store. And I talked to this young girl, and we exchanged pleasantries, and I asked her if she would go out with me on a date. And she said, well, she says, my parents have a rule at home that any one of our daughters, and there were 4 girls at home, the first date has to be to church.
Oh, wow.
And she looked at me and she said, you do go to church, don't you? And of course I was taken completely by surprise. And sure, I go to church. Sure, I do. And she said, huh, I bet you do. And I said, no, if that's what it takes, church it is.
Okay, so she smelled you.
Yes. And she said that 9 times out of 10 that scares away potential suitors.
Oh.
But fortunately for me, and unfortunately for her plans, it didn't scare me off. And we went on a date that Sunday, and it was to church. And
the first time after a long time.
First time after a long time. And I asked her out again a second time that afternoon, and she said, well, all right, because she said, in retrospect, she said she really didn't like me at all and couldn't stand me. But when I asked her to go out again, she said she felt sorry for me and said yes. So we went out the second time to church, and then we went out to dinner. And she said after the second date, well, maybe he's not that bad. And so we went out a third time, and after that it was like, well, he's not so bad at all. And so after a few months of dating, we started talking about getting married.
Wow.
And I was still in the service, and Uncle Sam, as we call the military, threw a bit of a wrench into the plans and sent me away to Alaska for a year. And while I was in Alaska for a year, in my last year in the service, we were engaged and we wrote back and forth.
Well, that's a great story, and thank you for sharing that with us. Actually, me having a little girl, I learned something. When she will grow up, have the first date to the church.
First date is to church. But see, in the meantime, between the time when we met and I went to Alaska, God called me to become a Christian by our going to church on Sundays on a regular basis.
This was what kind of denomination? Christian?
Oh, this was a Baptist church.
Baptist church.
This is a Baptist church, and every day after the service, the preacher, the Baptist church, would ask people if they wanted to come forward and receive Christ as their Savior. And my mindset was always focused more on, well, this is Sunday and the football game starts in about 20 minutes, so hurry up, buddy, because I need to get home and watch the football game. And as I was going to church and I was seeing a different lifestyle in her parents' home and from her and her family, much different than the family life that I knew, I finally was getting a little bit more interested in what I was hearing at church. And then finally one Sunday, and it was September 29th, 1969, I remember the day just like it was yesterday, when the preacher said, would anybody like to come up here and receive Christ? A voice in my head said to me, you need to go up there, he's talking to you.
So it was clearly out of yourself.
And I was looking around like, where did that come from? And the voice again said, yeah, you, I'm talking to you. You need to go up there and do that right now. And I obeyed the voice in my head, and I went up front and asked the pastor of the church how I could become a Christian.
I see.
And I received Jesus Christ as my Savior on that Sunday, September 29th, 1969, and that was my initial introduction into the Christian faith.
Father Stephen,
Ta-da.
now that you are a Christian,
Yes.
I know that you studied theology
Yes.
next, and after a long, let's say, I should not say career, but a long, a lot of years as a Baptist, right?
As a Protestant.
As a Protestant,
25.
25 years, and also having what studies in theology?
Well, I went to Bible college and got a degree in pastoral study. I was a pastoral studies major, and then I went to seminary and majored in the Old Testament.
How many years was that?
8 years.
8 years. Wow.
Total. 4 undergraduate and 4 graduate.
And you told me that you studied the Bible in what languages?
Well, I studied the Bible literally, grammatically, historically, and in the original languages, Hebrew and Greek.
Wow. Okay.
And a little Latin.
And a little Latin. Now, we are going to go to the next part of what we established at the beginning.
Okay.
Why?
Say it without your hands.
Yeah, without my hands. Why after 8 years of theology, after 20, how many years?
25.
25 years as a Protestant.
Right.
Why Orthodoxy?
Well, because when you study the scriptures in the manner in which I described, you really can't help but to become Orthodox if you treat the scripture in a literal, historical, and grammatical manner, and especially in the original languages. And I came to conclusions that the scripture taught certain things that I believed were true from my personal study, but those things were in large part rejected by the Protestant church. And so the emphasis in Protestantism is that the Bible is the final authority for all faith and practice, and that the Bible is king and what it says goes. And I said, well, this is what it says, and I can show you that this is exactly what it says. And I say, well, yeah, it may say that, but I don't think so. I don't believe that.
So
We believe a different way. See, there's 2 ways you can study something. You can study it deductively, or you can study it inductively. Mm-hmm. When you study something inductively, you let the facts tell you the conclusion. But when you study something deductively, you already reach a conclusion, and then you force the facts to fit the conclusion you've already reached.
Yeah.
And so I was always allowing the facts to tell me what the conclusion should be, rather than looking at it from a predetermined point of view.
So you are looking at it the other way around.
Yes.
Like, okay.
It's like a good detective. If a good detective, he lets the facts lead him to the suspect. He doesn't say, well, I think he did it, now I'm going to prove that he did it.
Okay. But I know that you did not discover actually an Orthodox church to go inside. It was a bit later, right? It
was a bit later because the things that we believed as a student of the Holy Scriptures, and from reading the Church Fathers as well, was in such conflict with the teachings of the church that I was in at the time in California. And it was called, quote unquote, the best church in the area because several professors and people from Biola University, which is a leading Bible college in America, were members there. And so if you were going to a place, you wanted to go to the best that there was, and this was supposedly the best that there was. Yeah. But I was always in conflict with the leadership and the teachings of this particular church.
Because of your understanding?
Because of my understanding of the Holy Scriptures.
And I'm assuming, that you can clarify this, that the people that you're in conflict with maybe did not have the 8 years of theology that you had.
Well, I'm sure they had training in Bible college, but they didn't have the thoroughness of the training that I had by the grace of God, and didn't perhaps approach things with an inquiring, open mind that says, let me determine what the facts are from the study, rather than just telling me what I need to believe.
Yeah.
Because this is what happens really in cults, is the cult leaders tell you, this is what you will believe and there is nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes very, very dangerous. Mm-hmm. And this is where you get Jehovah's Witnesses and Latter-day Saints, Mormons, and God knows what else out there.
I would say even atheists.
Well,
this is what you believe.
Yeah.
What Darwin said.
Yeah. Darwin is the origin of the species is their holy scripture.
Yeah.
And Darwin is God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
But anyway, it all came to a head one day when the pastor of the church and I got into a verbal discussion, and I actually got him to the place where he just didn't have anything else that he could say logically and rationally. And so they wrote us a letter and said, we think you need to leave the church and go someplace else.
So when the words fail, you just act from the force.
Yeah.
This is what they did.
Yeah. If you can't beat them logically and rationally, just tell them to get lost.
I see. I think it was disappointing for you, but it was maybe a step forward.
Well, it wasn't disappointing so much in terms of not staying at that church, because at that time I had a very definite feeling in my soul that perhaps God's church did not exist anymore in the world. Mm. And that's when God opened the door, because he had friends of ours who were, quote unquote, investigating the Orthodox Church. And since they knew that we had been given the boot from the Baptist Church, said, would you like to come with us and visit the Orthodox Church that we're looking at? And I said, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Just like Eugene Rose. I think Eugene Rose, what's the name?
Father Seraphim Rose?
Father Seraphim Rose. But at the point he was Eugene Rose.
Yeah.
I think this is how he discovered an Orthodox church. Just why not enter this one?
Yeah. He was a homosexual before he became Orthodox.
Really?
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, he was a homosexual.
Wow. Well, this changes a lot. Okay.
That's how much orthodoxy can change a person's life.
Yeah.
Because as Metropolitan Hierotheos Vlahos, whom I read extensively, his latest work is called The Science of Spiritual Medicine. Because the Orthodox Church is a hospital, and it has the medicine for the healing and cure of the human soul, which Protestantism has no clue about. Mm-hmm. So if I want to compare Protestantism with Orthodoxy, it's like, and from my days before becoming a Protestant, even before becoming a Christian at all, it's like in those days I was living in a house which was completely dark, with no windows and no light whatsoever, and every place I went I had to stumble and feel my way so I didn't trip over something and fall and injure myself. When I became a Protestant, it was like somebody opened a couple of roof tiles and some light came in and it lit the room up in such a way that I could see a little bit, but not see everything. And there were so many dark corners that I couldn't see and couldn't navigate my way through. But when I became Orthodox, it was like they pulled the whole roof off and the whole room became illuminated completely.
Interesting.
And I had no problem navigating my way because now I could see where I was going and what was in front of me and what I needed to avoid and which way I needed to go.
Well, this also happened by the grace of God, because
All by the grace of God.
the grace of
All by the grace of God. If my friends hadn't been investigating the Orthodox Church, God knows where I'd be today.
I'm remembering now some words of Steve Jobs from Apple.
Uh-huh.
He actually was an artist in his way, right? He invented some beautiful devices that a lot of people appreciate. And after all this success, recently in the past years of his life, he noticed this on a video, I think it was. He said, looking backwards, you can connect the dots that brought you there. So
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. When you look back on things in retrospect, you can see how God ordered things. Psalm 37 says, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. And that's good advice to follow.
Now we talked about how you slowly got into at that point where you found Orthodoxy, and what happened when you first entered the church, Orthodox Church?
It was a completely different experience. And I was sort of mystified, but I wanted to find out more because it was so different. And so the next Saturday night, there was a meeting of catechumens and a roundtable discussion on the beliefs of Orthodoxy.
Wait, for the people watching, what is this word, catechumens?
Catechumens are people who have an interest in the Orthodox faith and take lessons on the teachings of the faith in preparation to become baptized and or chrismated into the church.
Or maybe just change their minds, right?
Or change their minds, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And this is, I decided that this is what I wanted to do, was to at least explore it more fully. And at the time, because of the fact that we had been thrown out of the church, my wife and I had an agreement with one another that one Sunday I picked where we go to church, and the next Sunday she picked where we go to church. And so the following Sunday was her choice to go what church to go to.
So any church, any denomination,
Yeah.
you're just experimenting.
Right. She was still very much into Protestantism, and she was raised in a family that was totally anti-Roman Catholic. And I love to tell the story that when she and her sister would come home from school, they would stop at the Roman Catholic Church and blow out all the prayer candles on their way home. And they'd come home and tell their mother, guess what we did today? And she'd say, what was that, girls? Say, well, we went into the Catholic Church and blew out all the prayer candles. And she'd pat them on the head and say, good girls, and give them each $1. And
Oh my.
it was a very, very anti-Catholic household.
Yeah.
Because her father was a converted Roman Catholic. So she viewed the Orthodox Church as being the Catholic Church. And she had no desire whatsoever to come back to this heathen place. And beside that, the incense, the Tamilia, gave her a very violent headache, and so she could not get out of the church fast enough.
But does this exist in the Catholic Church, the incense? I'm not
yes.
sure. Oh,
Yes.
it does exist.
Yes.
Okay. So basically this was her idea of the Orthodoxy, that it's just another Catholic Church.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so with it being her choice as to which church to which to go the next week, I just held my breath, because at that time I was a very, very terrible, overbearing husband, and I was the ruler of the house, and she did what I told her. And I thought to myself, in this case, if orthodoxy is where we need to be, then I can't force her to be in conformity with my feelings in this regard. And so if orthodoxy...
So you're feeling towards orthodoxy?
Well, at least wanting to explore it further.
But you did not want to force her.
But I didn't want to force her into it. And so I thought, if this is the place where we're supposed to be, we need to be there together. And so during the week, I waited for her to make her choice. And she said in the middle of the week, well, I know you like that place, and I didn't care for it at all. So how about you go there on Sunday and I'll go someplace else? Mm. And I said, no, if we go someplace, we go together. And she said, okay. So I said, will you at least come with me to Saturday night Vespers? Because at Saturday night Vespers, we don't have to worry about the incense. And because in the Western Rite Church in America, we only use incense at Vespers on Great Vesper service, not on a regular Vesper service.
What is Vespers for the people watching?
Vespers is evening prayer service.
Evening prayer?
In preparation for the Holy Liturgy the next day.
Okay, so it happens every Sunday night?
No, Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Right.
And also during the week when the next day is...
a liturgical day.
Liturgical.
Yes.
Okay.
So I got her at least to agree to come with me to the Saturday night Vesper service so we could listen to some of the teachings of Orthodoxy. So we went, and afterwards we went over into the parish hall for some teaching and some discussion, and some after that was passed. And after that, we had broken up into smaller groups and had some coffee and cake and tea or whatever, and just discussed things amongst ourselves. And during the discussion after Vespers, when the leaders of the discussions were saying, this is what Orthodoxy believes, I kept saying to myself, well, that's what I've always believed. Mm-hmm. It's what I've always taught. It's what I've always believed the scriptures teach. So the more I was hearing, the more I was seeing that my personal study in the scripture was agreeing with what Holy Orthodoxy taught.
So it was like a breath of fresh air.
Exactly. And so after we finished that and we were in the smaller groups and discussing, again, by the grace of God, the assistant priest at the parish, who was an older man who lived a considerable distance away from the church, never usually came on Saturday nights because of the long distance of travel and then being there the next day for the liturgy. But he and his wife were there that night, and I saw Mary Patty with Father John and his presbyter Nancy Lee, and they were talking at length. And I thought, oh, wow, I wonder what they're talking about. So I kind of moved over toward them and listened a little bit, and I heard Father say, well, Patty, you can put a handkerchief over your face and you can sit in the back, and when the incense comes, you can turn away, and then it won't bother you so much. And I thought, wow, this sounds like she might be coming here tomorrow. So I introduced myself into the conversation, and I said, from what I'm hearing here, I said, can I think that perhaps you are choosing that we will come here for church tomorrow? And she looked at me and she said, and I can see her face right now. She said, yes, she said, but don't get any ideas. And I said, no ideas whatsoever. And so we came to St. Michael Orthodox Church that next day for liturgy, and we've never been to another church since then.
And I liked something that I saw, because Father Stephen gave a lot of interviews here in Romania. I like something that you said at one point, that it was the first time when you felt that you have been to church.
Oh, no, that's what Mary Patty said.
Oh.
Because we had gone a couple more weeks, and one day after the liturgy, about 3 weeks, about our third liturgy, she looked at me after the liturgy and she said, she said, how you feel like you go to church all your life and you've never really been to church? And I said, yes, I've had that feeling very, very much for a long time. And she says, well, she says, now I really feel like I've been to church. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. And I said, are you ready to join? And she said, no, there's too much hurt from the last church. I'm not ready to join anything right now. 2 weeks later, she said, I'm ready to join after the liturgy. Mm-hmm. And so we came to St. Michael for the first time the second Sunday in February. We declared ourselves to be catechumens, and we were chrismated Orthodox in April of the same year, 1996. April the 16th, 1996, we were chrismated Orthodox, and we had come in February, so we were 8 weeks. And we were from the first time we walked in the door, 8 weeks later, we were chrismated Orthodox.
Let's see. You are now a Christian and an Orthodox.
Yes.
In 1996.
Yes.
Okay. Then you became a priest after a few years, or?
So in 2002, I was ordained to the Holy Diaconate and stayed a deacon until, now it's hard to remember. I guess 2018 or 19, when I was ordained to the priesthood by His Eminence Metropolitan Theophan, and then a year and a half later, I was elevated to the rank of archpriest.
Okay, so what we went through now is a lot of years, and you are in Romania, so you are ordained a priest in Romania.
Yes.
Which brings us to our final chapter of the discussion. Why Romania? Because there are a lot of Orthodox countries.
Yes, but there is no Orthodox country like Romania.
Okay, why?
Well, because, I have to start back a little bit. When I was a Protestant, I was not a good husband. I was not a good mate for my beloved wife, Mary Patty. She put up with a lot of very terrible things from me, and only by the grace of God did she not walk out on me many, many years ago.
You have now how many years of marriage?
51.
51.
Yeah, we're 52 in December. This coming December will be 52. And so when I became Orthodox and I learned the fact of the holy sacraments and that marriage was a sacrament, one of the 7 major sacraments of the church, and I much, much better understood what the marriage relationship was really all about. By the grace of God, again, Father John, who was our assistant priest at St. Michael Parish, was a licensed family counselor, and he was commissioned by our bishop to start a committee on marriage and family for the diocese, and he picked me to join the committee, which was at the time a terrible choice because I was not a good husband.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, I learned about what the sacrament of marriage, holy matrimony, was really all about. And under Father John's teaching and the teaching of the Holy Fathers, I became a marriage and family counselor. And even to the point of, by the grace of God, writing a book called How Do I Choose the Right Partner for Life, which was published in America and is in the process right now of being republished here in Romanian through Doxologia. Once we get sorted out from this whole Ukrainian-Russian business.
Is there a way to order it now online?
No, it's just barely been translated, and it still has to be.
But I mean the
printed.
English.
Oh, the English? I assume that you can still order it in English through Light and Life Publications in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. That was the publishing house that printed it. If it's still in print in English,
I will search and I will put a link for our viewers.
Okay.
If I find it.
Okay.
So what does this have to do with Romania?
Well, because I had this experience and this became my major focus as a clergyman in the Orthodox faith, we had a visitor come to our parish one evening to do a presentation on his work with alcoholics in Romania.
Oh, so he was an American.
He's American who lives in Cluj and is married to a Romanian woman, and he operates a clinic in Cluj,
which is a city in western Romania.
Which actually is more central.
More
isn't it?
central.
Yeah.
Central west.
Which deals with helping alcoholics, and most especially alcoholic priests and monastics.
Really?
Yes.
Is there such a thing as an alcoholic priest?
Very many, unfortunately.
Of course, because we are all human.
Exact. And sometimes the pressures of life get to everybody.
Yeah.
And we tend to want to self-medicate rather than find real help.
Yeah. Find the quick fix.
Yeah. Self-medication is the scourge of populations. Drugs, alcohol, and whatever else.
So what did this guy tell you nice about Romania?
Well, he told us about his work in Romania, and he said the missionary agency through which he worked, which is called Orthodox Christian Missionaries in Florida, will take on short-term specialists for work in different countries if they have a specialty that can be used to help the people. And so after the meeting, I showed him my book and I said, I do marriage and family counseling. And I said, I would love to come to Romania for a 6-week short-term missionary venture and do this if this will be of help to the Romanian people.
But did you ever have an idea where Romania is located on the map before this, or
Not really. Not really. And so he made a few phone calls and emails and whatnot, and they said, yes, we would love to have you come and spend 6 weeks. And so that meeting we had was in September, and in January I was on an airplane to Cluj for 6 weeks, 2 weeks in Cluj and 4 weeks in Iași.
Hey.
And so,
which is the city where Father Stephen is serving now at the church here in Iași.
And so I came by myself. I had to raise financial support, which God gave to me. I had gotten laid off from my job and was about ready to go into an early retirement at 62 years old. And so I had the freedom to come for 6 weeks. Got friends from the churches that helped me raise the money. So I had the money to come and was able to come for the 6 weeks. And when I came, I absolutely fell in love with the country, the people, the culture, and most especially that this was the most Orthodox country percentage-wise in all of the world. 91% of the people are baptized Orthodox here.
Yeah, I think now it's a bit less. The people that declare themselves as Orthodox, I think this dropped a little bit.
Yeah, it
but
could,
just a little bit.
it could have, but at the time when I came, it was the most Orthodox country in the world, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. And after 6 weeks of being here by myself without my dear wife, the day that I had to come back home again.
So she was here too?
No, she was home in America.
Yeah.
I was here by myself.
Okay.
The day I had to leave, I broke down and cried like a baby because I had to leave.
Really?
2 men had to hold me up because I was so overcome with emotion of having to leave and go back home again.
Oh, wow.
When I came back home, the people here in Yash gave me 2 huge shopping bags full of gifts and presents to take home. And I was overwhelmed, and I said, "Thank you so much." And one person said, "Don't feel so good about this, Father." He says, "Because most of those presents are for Mary Patty, your wife, and not for you." And I said, "For Mary Patty?" I said, "You've never met her. You don't know her." And they said, "Oh, Father, you talked about her so much and so lovingly and endearingly." They said, we believe that we know her just as well or better than we know you." And that just overwhelmed me even more. And I came home with these 2 huge shopping bags full of presents for Mary Patty from the Romanian people. And I said to myself that day, we are coming back, and I'm coming back, and I'm bringing Mary Patty, and I've got to show her this beautiful country. And a year later, we came back on a 3-week vacation at Father Radu's invitation, and we were here a day and a half, and Mary Patty visited Father's home that he was building here in Paun, and saw this empty lot next to his house, and said, "Father, who owns this property here, this empty lot?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "But maybe I can find out." "Why?" She says, "Because I want you to help us buy this lot. We're going to move here and build our house here. This is where we're going to live."
So this is after 36 hours.
Exact.
In Romania.
And I looked at her, and my jaw just dropped down to the ground, because I had in the back of my mind that after 3 weeks of being here, that after we're back home again, I would sort of subtly say something like, "Well, what would you think of someday maybe moving to Romania someday in the future?"
What impressed her so much in 36? Apart from what you have told her before, but coming here, what?
She said, "Just like you love the people, the culture, and the holy faith," she said, "I fell in love with it too." And she said, "I know how much you love this place." And she said, "I want to be where you want to be." Because several years before that, we were living, of course, we're living in California, but we grew up in Pennsylvania, and all our family was back in Pennsylvania. And I said to her one day, "What would you think someday about moving back to Pennsylvania?" And she said, "No." And I said, "No." I said, "Well, okay, why would you say it like that?" She said, "I will never leave my grandchildren," because our grandchildren were in California.
So I said, how many grandchildren?
4.
4.
So I said, okay. And so when she said, "We're moving to Romania," I said, "Honey, what about the grandchildren?" She said, "They can come visit us." And so that was in 2011, and in October of 2013 we sold our house and moved here and arrived in Romania permanently on December the 13th, 2013.
And here we are.
Here we are.
We are now in Father's house.
Yes.
In his
where there used to be an empty lot.
An empty lot, and now it's a beautiful, cozy house and a beautiful office.
Yes.
With a beautiful library here.
And going back to the buying of the property, Father did some inquiries, and found out that the land was owned by a Romanian woman who was married to an Arab man, and they lived in the Emirates, but that nobody knew how to get in touch with her. All they had was the phone number of a real estate agent. And so they called the real estate agent, and he said, well, I've been trying to get a hold of her for a while, and I can't, but I have an email address. So he gave Father the email address. He wrote an email to her, and the next day she responded and said, yes, I'll be glad to sell the property.
Because God works like that.
Because God works like that. When God wants you to do something and you are willing to do it and you make the effort, His grace overcomes all the obstacles.
Okay, so Father Stephen, as you can see, he's wearing now his robe, right? This is how it's called in English?
Actually, in English, it's called a cassock.
A cassock.
Mm-hmm.
Cassock.
Cassock.
Okay.
Cassock.
And the hat?
The hat, I have no idea what you call this. Whatever it's called in Romanian, that's what you call it. We don't wear these in America.
Oh, okay. And the cross here is what every priest wears, a cross?
Not every priest. This pectoral cross is what designates an archpriest from a regular priest.
Oh.
This is what is called a dignity that is given by the bishop to a priest for service, for longevity, whatever. It is a dignity bestowed upon a priest that acknowledges the fact that he is a senior priest.
And you received that?
I received this in a few years ago, and then last year, by the grace of God, at the Saint Festival of St. Paraskeva, I received another one from His Eminence Theophan, which is called the Moldovan Cross, which is a special award for, in our case, for people who have given up their homeland to come to Romania to serve in another country.
I see. Okay, now I would like to pass to kind of a bonus section, because here we are. I will be posting this on my channel on Telegram and on Facebook. I am a national tour guide here in Romania, and I asked Father Stephen to have this discussion with me because this is what I am doing. I am presenting Romanian spirituality, Christian Orthodox spirituality, to people from other countries that did not have the chance to experience it yet. So I had the opportunity to do this before the pandemic. It was a bit of a break in the pandemic, and it was so interesting to me to have people from North America, South America, and other parts of the world coming in Romania in an Orthodox church or a monastery and just have their jaw drop. I remember a nice Mormon couple. They were, I think, 70-something years old, and they were visiting Europe. And the wife, she said, "Look, it was in a church in southern Romania, if I remember correctly." She said, "I do not want to get out until I find out the story of each and every saint painted on these walls." So this impressed me a lot, and it happened also after that with other people. So this is what I am doing here. And Father, I would like to ask you, why would you think that people should come from the States or from Western Europe to visit Romania? This actually the only Orthodox Latin country in the world, because the other Orthodox countries are mostly Slavic around us,
right?
And there is also Greece a bit farther.
Yes.
So why should someone come from his big city or from his corporate job, take a vacation and come experience Romania?
Because the life here is laid back. It's not the hustle and bustle of the Western world that we're used to. The people are just absolutely fantastic. They will give you the shirts off their backs in order to show the true nature and hospitality of the country and the true tradition of the country. Romania is actually considered to be a poor country, but in reality, it's a very, very rich country. At one time before the First World War, it was the breadbasket of the entire European continent. But two wars have very greatly decimated the Romanian economy and culture, unfortunately, and outside influences that have come and ravaged it have detracted from it. My own humble opinion and personal belief is that the European Union is one of the worst things that could have happened to Romania, because now the European Union imposes sanctions and rules and regulations, like the farmers aren't allowed to sell their milk at the piazza anymore. We buy raw milk at the piazza, we take it home and boil it. I make my own butter, and we have the tastiest, best milk I ever tasted in my life here.
Yeah.
But if the European Union had its way, that would not exist anymore.
Yeah, in Romania we have this way of doing things. Most of the people who live in the cities have a lot, either relatives like their parents or grandparents in the countryside, or friends in the countryside. So basically what we like to do is, if we can spare some time, just go in the countryside and have the products from there. We buy them from, like, the milk that you say,
Yes,
and vegetables that are more natural, more ecological in the countryside than in the
yeah, and the food is just absolutely marvelous here. There's no chemicals, there's no preservatives. I've lost 40 pounds since I've come to Romania, and my weight has gone down significantly, and I still eat like a horse. But it's the fact that there's no chemicals or preservatives, and the food is absolutely delicious here.
Well, I should say there are chemicals, because we also have industrial agriculture, but we also have, fortunately, a lot of people that still grow food in their backyards. So
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's what I'm talking about.
Because, well, I would also like to say a bit of an anecdote, something that I know from a German guy. He was a Romanian, but in the communism, there were in the central part of Romania a lot of German nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And after the communism fell, he spoke with his wife and he said, "Let's go back home to Germany, to where our parents lived, and let's have a house there." And they went there, and after they installed themselves in their house, they started a picnic in the courtyard, having some meat on the grill.
Mm-hmm.
And then the firemen were at their gate because the neighbors called the firemen. And at that point, he said to his wife, "Let's go back to Romania."
Yes.
Nobody calls the firemen in Romania because you are grilling some meat.
Exactly. I mean, you go to the piazza and you can buy things that are fresh from the farm, and there you have no preservatives, no chemicals, nothing like that.
Piazza is kind of like a farmer's market.
Yeah, it's like a farmer's market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you can find a lot of old women that just bring their basket with vegetables from their garden, freshly picked
Yes.
that morning, and eggs and milk.
Yes.
Yeah, but today it's actually the eggs and milk are a bit under the table for the people that know the woman, because if the control guys come, they'll say, "Wow, do you have milk? Yeah, but you should keep it in the fridge. You don't have a fridge there." But so it's a bit under the table.
Yes.
But well, this is how we do, and it's good like that, because we have access to good food like that.
We certainly do.
Okay, so that's it for tonight, because it's a bit late after a long day. We managed to have this discussion, and thank you a lot, Father Stephen, for it. And I hope this will tell people, this will give people a glimpse of what Romania means and what Christian Orthodoxy means. Thank you so much.
Eu sper.
God bless.